And welcome back.
Hi everyone, we're back.
Aaron Steele here.
Brian Ricks.
So we're going to jump in and try and do a little bit of a demo on conferencing and conferencing in Lync 2013. I'm going to try and walk through a bit of how you turn on WAC, because I think people are getting a little apprehensive about what it takes to enable this feature, and I want to show really how simple it is.
That's right, and remember, it is a server, it is a server license, but beyond that, for Lync's purposes, that's it.
Yep. Yep. And then I'll try and walk you through what it looks like to configure some of this stuff from a conferencing perspective, and then I want to show you how quickly and how some of that interacts on a client.
Great.
So in WAC, really WAC requires this set of features for the Lync. For the server hosting WAC, it has a couple of IIS features that are needed. You should be able to. PowerPoint's open, but not.
Slide it over.
Yeah, so you're presenting still.
Now I can't see it though. Nope, it's okay.
Well, if you slide it over, I'll put it on that. I'll put it up.
No, it's okay. Hold on one second.
You're still in presenting mode, huh?
There, I closed PowerPoint. Does that help?
Nope, sorry.
Okay.
I'll show you here.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
Can you just duplicate your screen?
Yeah. Sorry about this, everybody.
It adds for interesting, banter, and let's look for questions. What is the SBA? Can you talk more about what an SBA is?
SBA is a survivable branch appliance. So it's a server role running a bit of Lync code, but in an embedded sort of 1U chassis frame, and it usually, or I think always, has to have a media gateway configured on it as well. So it's potentially a 1U device, potentially a VM that's installed on a Cisco chassis with some voice gateway capabilities and features in there, and it provides for user failover into sites that are too small to have Active Directory resources.
Okay, so what is running on it from a Lync code perspective? Which roles exist?
Effectively, it's just the registrar. Effectively, it's just the ability, it's just giving those local Lync clients in that site the ability to register to that device.
And then the mediation role is there as well for the voice configuration.
Yep. Yep. The mediation role is there to interact with the voice gateway role that's also on the device.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
And it's an embedded device, meaning you as the end user don't have much control over the updating of it. You rely on the vendor of that device to push out new code for you.
Right. Okay.
So hopefully that answered the person's question.
Hope so. And now we're going to go back to the demo, hopefully.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yes.
So as I was saying, the WAC role really just needs a couple of additional IIS features to be turned on. So we've run this PowerShell command called add Windows feature, net-HTTP activation, net non-HTTP activation, and net WCF HTTP activation 4.5. That's .NET 4.5.
Right.
And these are just some prerequisite roles that we required. Simple, very simple result that, hey, they were successfully turned on. And then here, you'll see I had an error. Why did I have an error? Oh, wait, because I mistyped the certificate name.
Typos. They're awesome. And that certificate name it's asking for is the friendly name of the certificate. So
yes.
I have also found that if you don't have a friendly name, if you try to use quote, quote, leave it blank, while it successfully runs, it does not successfully work. So yes, it'll set up, but it doesn't actually do what you want it to do. So
sorry, I just wanted to give people a little better view of this. So I'm just changing my my screen resolution here for a minute to try and let people see what's happening on here. And then if you actually look, so after this, I create a new Office Web App farm, right? With the right certificate, it creates a lot of these settings. And then I create this new Office Web App host with a domain. And what that simply does is it adds the Lync server environment that is representing this domain as an allowed participant to consume this host. you'll see now when I run this command for get Office Web App Farm, it shows the internal URL, the external URL. It shows some of these settings I defined when I created it, but it also shows a big list of the defaults that are coming in that you as the administrator can use to further configure and interact with your Office Web App Server if you needed to.
Such as being able to write.
Such as being able to write, such as what's the cache size of your content? Is clip art enabled? Is translation turned on? Where are you caching? What can be done with Excel? A lot of these additional things, though, are important when you're dealing with the Office Web App Server for SharePoint more than for Lync.
For the window we're on, can it go full screen? Does that grow up? It grew up.
Yes, it does, and it shows a little more data here about the internal URL and external URLs, and you'll see that this one here is a URL on the internet, obviously, an external URL, and in fact should be able to be resolved to my reverse proxy.
And then on the reverse proxy, well, here we're going to have whatever we're reverse proxying addressed to from a certificate perspective. On the reverse proxy is where we'd have the public name on it.
Just this public name on the reverse proxy. Yep. So once I've got, first things first, after I've run this feature here, I need to install Office Web Apps before I'll get those other things.
That's something we download from the internet.
Something you download from the internet. It's simply, I've got it extracted here. I just run this setup. There's really no interaction to that except for where do I want to install it. I don't really get any options about it. I just install it. One thing to note, right? Brian was talking about the friendly name. There's my friendly name.
Yeah. And spaces, quotes, that's required, obviously. Nothing special within PowerShell.
Yep. A good thing to remember, though, is, in fact, to get this certificate onto the server, you can't use IIS to generate it. You actually have to use the cert snap-in and run an advanced custom request. And I'll just step through this very quickly. The reason I have to use an advanced request is because in an advanced request, I can actually go in and specify things like, should I make my private key exportable? Because you have to remember, if I'm deploying multiple web app servers, that name that I'm deploying is the load balance name of that entire pool or farm of a web app server, right? It's not each unique server in that list. The other thing is, here's where I can do additional SAN attributes in that name.
Okay.
So I get this cert to have both the external and the internal cert on it. So once I've deployed those things and run these commands, right, I get the capabilities of sharing PowerPoint. And wrong one. In here, if I just create a conference with these people and hit IM them, you'll see I have the ability to share a PowerPoint because they've now all been joined into that conference. I have to instantiate the conference. So I can't just multiple click on some people and not send them something, be it a voice call or start a video call or send them an IM. And I can't share PowerPoint until I've done that.
What about if you do the Meet Now?
So if I've done a Meet Now, I've already instantiated all the MCUs and done all that work.
There's just no users in it.
Exactly.
Initially,
I've invited anybody to consume it.
It's set it up as saying, I'm a conference, let's get going.
But then we've got this PowerPoint, and you'll see, so desktop and program are just me sharing a piece of content. Whiteboard and poll are going to be those advanced things that are going to be rendered in the engine and allow for interaction by the different people. And then you'll notice that PowerPoint is the other thing I've got here. So I simply go and start PowerPoint and choose a PowerPoint, it'll spin this up, and what's going on in the background here is, in fact, it's uploading that PowerPoint to the server, and you'll see that happening right down here at the bottom where it's uploading that PowerPoint to the server, and once it's fully uploaded to the server, it'll render it here for me.
From the
WAC server.
Yeah, so you're viewing what the WAC's pushing back to you.
Exactly, I'm viewing an HTTP. And strangely, it pops out Excel there, but this is an HTTP view of that PowerPoint that I just told it to share.
Right. And that's, again, because you are a 2013 client. If you're a 2010, you'd be getting the older content type downloaded down, just like any 2010 client.
Yes. And I think I need to rejoin, but yeah, I've got another, I can join up that conference on another client and show that off, potentially. I think we're going to skip that for now. So we were talking about conferencing policies earlier and talking about how we interact with those things. Again, I'm logged into the Lync server control panel as a full Lync administrator. I'm CS administrator. If I go up here, what roles I am in, right? CS administrator and server administrator, I can do everything. That's why I see all these tabs and interact with it in this way. I've now got conferencing here, and I've got these additional conferencing policies. Again, I've got my global policy where I have all these defaults configured about what works and what doesn't work in the environment. And it's very easy for me to go in here and create a new site or user level policy that maybe restricts or enables some of those features depending on what I've done with my catch-all. In meeting configuration, this is where I can start to specify who gets in to the conference, as well as what the URLs and footer texts are for that meeting invite.
Right, and for the footers and the text and URLs, that's static. The other stuff, that's the defaults. A user has the right still to overwrite that, as their defaults could be something else.
Yep. Yeah, it's not. These things aren't things that are being enforced by policy. They are things that are being presented to that user in their invite as the default.
Right.
We talked about dial-in access number.
Super simple, super cool.
Oh, super simple, super cool. The part to remember is down here.
The regions.
When you hit add and pull regions, right?
There has to be one.
You have to have gone here into your voice routing.
I don't know how many times we'll go through the process, go to add and go, oh, I forgot to add a region.
And define an open text field here called dial-in conferencing region. Right. Whatever's defined here
becomes in the list.
Is what shows up on in that list of things that I'm able to select here.
Right.
And it's simply open text.
Right. And again, if you don't put anything and you don't have it, you can't create it. So you have to set it up and then go, cancel, go and create a region and come back.
And then users, based on the
dial plan.
Based on the dial plan that user is granted. So Bob on the Redmond pool has my dial plan redmond.onprem.local. If that wasn't a user level policy, I could theoretically get that same policy to Bob by having it be a site level policy and Bob being in the site where Redmond is located. But because Bob is in that policy, the interaction is simply, here's Bob signed into Outlook. I create a new Lync meeting. Outlook goes out and reaches out and finds all those things in my environment and configures me a meeting, right? I can also see dial-in conferencing numbers and all the numbers that are published in my environment. And you'll see there's an additional number on here. That's actually just an artifact of the latency of this environment, that it's showing up that other number in this.
We pulled it out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the number of numbers that you add is really just an entrance point. We could, wherever you want, whatever numbers, as long as Lync owns that number, we can bring it into the call and we can have it access. It's all the same numbers. Most
definitely. And an important thing to remember about these numbers is, as long as the number is resolved to a Lync pool in your environment, it will work to join a conference on any other pool.
Yeah, we want, as long as we can get in.
Yep.
Yeah. And the other thing to remember is if you're using good old POTS numbers for these, that's one person can call in if you don't have rollover. So theoretically and ideally, these are numbers that have multiple lines.
Oh, sure. This is something you'd want a PRI or a T1 or
a SIP trunk or
on.
something that allows multiple users calling into the same number. If not, you won't have the best user experience.
Right,
the line will be busy.
Exactly. When the Lync server picks it up for the first user, it's going to go off hook busy.
Right, and it's not Lync that's doing anything special there or fancy. That's telco. We just need telco to work so we can get multiple numbers in. So.
Yep, most definitely. Then here, it's a little strange. We've got our PIN policy here, but it's because though we in the Lync world use this PIN policy for more than just your conference is where that PIN policy comes from.
Right. And again, remember, this is the same policy that we use for PIN authentication.
Right.
It's how do I identify you without having AD credentials.
Yep. So, and since the phones can't enter AD credentials, that's our piece there. In a Lync meeting, we were talking about the meeting options. You'll notice that a large portion of this window is grayed out because I'm in my dedicated meeting space. As soon as I pop over to a new meeting space, I can start changing and altering the ways that people get in, who gets in, who goes into the lobby. I can start choosing presenters. Important thing to remember about choosing presenters, presenters can only be chosen at the start from people within your organization. Federated people, anonymous people, just email addresses can't be put into the presenters list at invite creation time.
Right. Once you're in the meeting, of course, we can move
anybody.
I can
promote anybody.
Right. The other thing that's interesting is this private versus public concept of what are your configurations, the very two top options. Those are actually can be turned off altogether, so you don't have, if you don't want.
You can force people to use a unique meeting for every time.
And there are advantages to that, and there's disadvantages. So depending on your environment, and this would be rolling back to our earlier discussion on finding out business requirements, if people are used to handing out the same passcode to dial into their conference page all the time.
Right, the same conference ID every time.
Then you need to have their ability to have their dedicated room. If not, there are high advantages to having a new one every single time because you never get overlap, meeting overlap.
Yeah.
Nobody likes it.
It doesn't happen in that world.
It can't happen because every meeting is a brand new meeting.
Yep. And if I change that and I now look at my meeting ID, it changed right here. I got a brand new meeting ID and I got a brand new, when I highlight over this, I got a brand new short URL, or what we used to like to call a friendly URL for this.
Friendly.
Right,
more friendly.
Because GD54ZYQB is friendly, right?
Yeah, and we're going to print all of those on our business cards.
Yep.
Yay.
It's my license plate.
And then here is a commonly sort of missed one is if I'm creating a meeting and I know that 70% of my participants are coming from Kuala Lumpur and we have a number in Kuala Lumpur, I can let those users not need to go find a local number, right? I can let those users not need to click that, and I know that myself, when I click to join, I will just join the meeting and I don't need to find a number at all.
Right.
But I can make it so that my users in Kuala Lumpur, where I have a Lync server, or maybe I don't even have a Lync server there. I have local PST ingress to a gateway that talks to Lync in the US.
Right.
Maybe not the most speedy implementation.
Probably not likely for a data center in Kuala Lumpur, or call center, but it's possible, I suppose.
And then one thing to remember about conferencing here, these are the default DTMF codes. So DTMF features, you can alter how these DTMF codes map into your conference. If you're migrating from a different ACP or conference bridge provider, and you want to make it so that your end users get a familiar set of numeric instructions to mute, unmute, remove people, admit people, do those things. You can alter these to make that a little more user friendly for your end users.
Yeah. And very common in environments that are doing mass migrations from an existing solution provider, and we just want to make it as easy as possible.
Yep. Yep.
Ideally, they're not using dial-in to actually do DTMF. Ideally, they're using a Lync phone
Or a Lync
Lync client on a mobile device, something that you can visually. But we do support it.
But DTMF works, and it is definitely out there. And in fact, you have to set it up, whether or not, in fact, users will eventually call that number. Mm-hmm. If you want to support Lync full-featured conferencing, you have to at least get one number set up for dial-in conferencing.
Right. Yeah, whether or not it works or not, from an inbound egress perspective. Inside the network, that number would always work because we can resolve it. But anyway, I digress.
Let's see. Is there anything else that people are interested in seeing in here? If not, I think that demo is done. I don't think there's much more I can show about that environment right now.
Okay, and everything looks quiet on the board, so.
Okay, I think we're just going to take a quick 2-minute break so I can switch over and get ready for the next presentation. We'll be back in just a minute.
Awesome. See you guys soon.